Hey, what's up, guys? And welcome back to another forecast video on my YouTube channel, right? So, as I always do, I'll be sharing with you my directional bias for the upcoming trading week, right? So, if you missed the show from last week, you shouldn't miss this one, okay? Because this week there are a lot of insane opportunities coming up, right? So, you might really want to stick around to the end of this video. Okay, so this week we'll be talking about GBP USD, we'll be talking about gold, and we will also look at Euro USD. Okay, so real quick before we delve onto the chat, if you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, right? And turn on post notifications as well so that you don't miss out on other future videos. Okay, so real quick, let's step onto the chat and let's see what we have for the upcoming trading week. Okay, guys, so let's be quick with this one. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Euro USD, right? So stepping onto the higher time frame, and let's touch on what the higher time frame is doing. Okay, so I know that from the previous week we've been defining this higher time frames, levels and structural points, right? So we have this three beautiful structural points that we have marked, the gray zones, right, as our point of supply, right? And we can see that we had this beautiful imbalance in here. Mind you, we are on the daily time frame, but in here the daily and the weekly are sharing the same structural leg. Okay, so yeah, so we are in this imbalance. We can see how price has come into this imbalance, right? And personally, I will be looking for price to come into any of these levels before we sell down. But then there are also times where price just reacts of an imbalance, and then we sell to the downside. Okay, but then we will see what the intraday time frame say. Okay, when we get there, we're going to see if price is really going to sell from the imbalance right there. Okay, so real quick, we are on the H4 time frame, and we can see what the H4 time frame is doing, right? So we had this last H4 high taken out here real quick. So H4, we are bullish, right? However, daily and weekly we are bearish, right? And as clear as day, we can see that we have tapped into that imbalance from the daily time frame, right? So this is our last point of H4 demand, right? What it means is that if price comes in here, we might have price changing intent, and then we buy to the upside, right? And also, if we have this level broken, then H4 has really broken, and then we are going to do, or we are going to start making the continuation of that daily to the downside, right? So that is what this means. Okay, so real quick, I will step into M15 and show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so here on M15, right, in as much as we have defined our H4 level of demand right in here, what I can see in here is, yeah, I mean, you might say this is M15 break or structure, but with me, how I read structure, I know that this was, my last low, and we've now had that change of intent, right? So after the change of intent, yeah, we might have a retracement into any of these levels. So either in here or the one at the top in here before we can sell back down, right? So apart from that, you need to ask yourself if price is really willing to make that push into any of these zones, right? And the only time we can confirm that price really wants to make this push into any of these zones, we will need to have this last high taken out. Okay, so what this means is that we may not necessarily have price retracing into these levels right before pushing back down, but then if this level decides to hold, you may have price continuing all the way to the downside, right? Sometimes we can have price respecting this level, we make a push to the downside, and then maybe as time goes on, we will have price changing its intention, right? Then we can now come back into these levels before we push back down. But then personally, I'm bearish on Euro USD until we get into these levels of H4 demand. And if price gives me any intention to look for buys from this level of H4 demand, then I'm going to look for it. If it gets into this level of H4 demand and still continues with the bears, why not? I'm going to ride to the downside, right, to break that H4 last level of demand. Okay, So currently, just to put in summary what I'm looking at, all I'm looking at is to see either this level respected, right? Then when the market opens, I'm going to look for certain opportunities and take the trade to the downside. Or when the market opens, I'm going to have this level breaking, right? Then I'm going to hop into any of these levels where I can look for what sells back down. Okay, so that is what I'll be looking at on Euro USD. Okay, so gold GBP USD, which one should we do first? Okay, so let's look at gold. Okay, so XAU USD, and let's see what price is saying. So real quick, I'm going to start from the daily time frame. So here on XAU USD, we marked this liquidity pool from last week, right? And they are liquidity pools that were built from previous weeks, I think from where 2020, right? So here on gold, on the daily time frame, if you remember from last week, I said that we've had this break of structure and we have this level of supply that we needed price to come to, and we can see that price has come into that level of supply beautifully, right? So real quick, I'm gonna step into H4, but then before I step into H4, this is the daily leg which I'm looking at, right? And once price has come into this level, I will see the reaction it gives me to take the move back to the downside. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at on the daily. On the H4 time frame, let's see what the H4 is saying, right? So here on H4, we can see that we are bullish, right? This was the last low that made this high. Okay, so H4 broke structure right in here. Okay, so you can see that I've marked this H4 demand zone beautifully, and all what I'll be looking for is for price to come into this level, right? And if price shows any intent to make a push to the upside, why not? I'm going to capitalize on it, right? Even though I know that price is coming from what, a daily supply zone. If it gets into this demand zone and decides to change its intent to continue with the H4 bulls, why not? I'll capitalize on it to buy to the upside. If we have price, continuing with the best as well, again, we are going to ride all the way to the downside because daily overall is what is bearish. Okay, so real quick, I'll step into M15 and we will see what M15 is doing. Okay, so M15 was initially bullish, right? And then we change intent right in here. Okay, so now M15 is bearish, aligning with the daily. Okay, what this also means is that we can have M15 what beginning that H4 retracement leg into this H4 demand, and if H4 decides to hold with the bulls, then we're going to buy to the upside, like I said. Okay, so M15 has switched bearish, like I said, and we have all these beautiful levels of liquidity built in here. So what do we have here? We have this Asian low which has not been taken yet. We have this Frankfurt low which has also not been taken yet, and we have this low from London, right? That's from last week. Okay, so all these are beautiful points of liquidity, and we can see how they are built in here, right? And so it gives me that confidence that we can have price, coming right back into that level of H4 demand like this. Okay, so that gives me that confidence, right? But then we can see this beautiful high in here, right? So this was the high that was created last week, right? And this same last week's high is the last point of supply of M15, right? What it means is that if this high is broken, M15 will be what? Bullish, will turn bullish. But then I have another thing that I will be looking at. Now, because this is the high from last week, right? It can be a liquidity pool. What it means is that if this high is broken, instead of me looking at it as an M15 break or structure, I am going to just consider it as what? A liquidity grab, right? Of last week's high. Then I'm going to look for sales all the way to the downside, right? Because I have all these levels of liquidity built in here. Okay, but then looking at what price has presented to us, right? This is the last level of 15-minute supply, and I'll just be looking for what price will do in here. Then I can take the sales to the downside. Okay, so that is what I will be looking at on gold for the upcoming week. And the last pair that we will be looking at is GBP USD. Okay, so real quick, GBP USD, what is it saying on the daily time frame? So here on the daily time frame, we can see what GBP USD is doing, right? Okay, So we can see that we have this high that made this low, right? So we've broken structure to the downside. So daily is bearish, right? And we've come back into that daily level of supply, right? So real quick, let's step into H4 and let's see what H4 is doing, right? So here on the H4 time frame, what I can see is that I have this low that made this high, right? And we have that low broken. Okay, so that is the H4 structural level, right? So I have H4 also bearish, aligning with what? With the daily, right? So these two bigger time frames are bearish. And real quick, from here we can see that this level of what supply has been respected and price has made that push to the downside. What it means is that if we are getting any sell, we'll be looking to target at least this low, right? If you have any intention of swinging this position, right? If you sell from here and you have the heart to take that swing position to hold that trade for long, you'll be taking it to this daily structural level in here, right? So yeah, real quick, let's step into intraday time frames and let's see what price is saying on this intraday time frames, right? So we've established our daily direction, our daily directional bias. We are bearish. H4, we've broken structure to the downside. We are also bearish, right? So what are the confluences, or what are the stuff that I look for that gives me the confidence that price will come to this low? Okay, so first of all, this was the low that was created from last 2 weeks, and you can see that it has not been taken out. Okay, so that was liquidity built from 2 weeks ago, right? Apart from that, we have these lows in here which were built from last week. Okay, so this was last week's low. And what can you say about these lows, right? We can see that this low was also in confluence with the Asian session low, right? And we have another Asian session low in here which has not been taken, and a Frankfurt open low in here which has also not been taken. And all these are beautiful pools of liquidity to look at, because price may come there to take them out into this low that was built from last 2 weeks. Okay, so right in here, what can I say about M15, right? So this was where we had that change of intent on M15, right? So we had M15 changing its intent, right? We made a retracement, we made a push back down, right? We broke structure to the downside. That's a follow through break of structure on M15, right? And after that, what do we see again? We see this level in here, which made a push to the downside. Okay, and I have these two beautiful zones that I'm looking at, and what I'm looking at is for price to come into any of these levels, then we can sell back down. So either price coming into the first level or the one higher, then we can sell back down, because already we have daily bearish, we have H4 bearish, and now we can see that M15 is also what? Bearish. Okay, so in here on GBP USD, I'm fully bearish, right? All I have to do is just wait for price to come into any of these levels, then I can look for good trades to the downside. Okay, so like I said, if I get any trade from any of this level minimum, right, I'll be taking it to this H4 target liquidity that I have in here, right? If I have any intention to swing it, I'll be swinging it to that last daily low that I showed you earlier. Okay, so these are all what I'll be looking at on these pairs that we have just talked about. Okay, if you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section, and please if you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. Okay, so see you within the week for another educative video.